Sarge? Where's the Sarge?
So we are talking episode 11 of Tour of Duty Season 1, this one called Roadrunner. Now, this is actually quite an action-heavy episode, and I've mentioned in the episode 10 review that one of the main problems with this episode is its numbering, essentially. It's kind of where it falls in the series. I actually feel like this episode was made to go earlier, but its sequential numbering is a problem, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. But let's just talk about the episode first of all. Essentially, we have Anderson, who gets a letter from his ex-wife saying his kind of young daughter is asking for him, and this kind of sends him into a bit of a tizwaz. He's kind of hasn't really heard from his family since, so he's kind of feeling a little bit weird about it. He gets a close call in a kind of an early scene in the mission where he's kind of nearly gets hit by a mortar. And then they go on a very, very dangerous mission to an NVA-controlled valley to try and kind of rescue downed fighter pilots, basically. And he's extremely worried about this area because he's been there before, and it was, in his own words, a massacre. So they go to this mission, and obviously things don't go quite to plan, and Zeke is really kind of struggling to deal with the kind of the pressures. So that's your basic plot of this episode. So why do I have an issue with where this episode sits in the series? Well, as I mentioned in the last episode, that one really kicked off the Purcell storyline, where he's having this kind of the issues with killing this young boy. But in this episode, Purcell is laughing and joking, and it's not kind of mentioned at all, and kind of he seems completely over it. Whilst, as we see in kind of later episodes, he's still affected for it. So that's the first problem I have. It almost feels like this episode should have been maybe like an episode 8, I feel, because Purcell is kind of completely okay with it, as it seems at the moment. The other thing is, it kind of has quite a similar setup to the first episode, so from the previous episode. So in the last episode, Purcell basically got a letter from his ex-girlfriend, and this kind of sent him on this kind of distraction that ended up causing him to have some personal issues. And then in this episode, Zeke gets a letter, and then that kind of sets him up to have some problems later on as well. So the actual setup is very similar to the exact same storyline that happened in episode 10. So I feel this episode, you look at it on its own merits, isn't bad. Actually, it's quite a good episode, but I don't feel it fits well as you watch it as a series, if that makes sense. So I don't know if this episode was meant to air like earlier in the season, which I think it might have done, or maybe later. But the setup's too similar to the previous episode, and the Purcell stuff is just completely glossed over. If it was in sequence, then I feel that's a bit of an oversight from the showrunners here. So let's talk about the show in its own rights, this episode in its own rights. Like I said, I think this is a pretty good episode, certainly for action, and it's unusual that you'll see Sergeant Anderson rattled in this series entirely. So it's, when he gets kind of like the shakes, basically, you've got to be worried. And when they go into this kind of valley, what it really does benefit from, I feel, is a bit of a change of scenery. We've kind of got these rocky cliffs, and there's kind of like there's grassland and these kind of like muddy hills. So it looks visually quite different, I feel, to like previous kind of like location shootings that I've done before, and I feel it really benefits from that. And I've got to say, this rescue mission to kind of rescue this downed pilot is thoroughly exciting. And we do see they've got a lot of extras here for the NVA troops. So they do seem particularly outnumbered in this episode, and the odds kind of are stacked against them. If we have to critique it, I feel they've maybe done a little bit, too much of a good job in getting away from these guys. They don't really seem to kind of have any kind of problems getting out, really, considering how outnumbered they are. The guest star, who is this pilot, is killed. Sorry, spoiler, but this is an old show. And I feel it would have been better if maybe he had lived, because where we have kind of situations like this, if we think of like the baby episode where they had to look after the baby, that died right at the end of the episode, and this one maybe feels a little bit too similar in a way, and it would have been nice for them to actually get this guy out alive. I know obviously war is tragic and all that, but I feel it kind of hits the same beats that the kind of the baby episode did. They did all this work, and at the end of the day it still died, and it kind of does the same thing again here. So it would have been maybe nicer for them to have got this guy out alive, and it kind of wouldn't have harkened back to what they'd done with the same thing with the kind of the baby episode. But on its own, on its merits, I've got to say it's a really good episode. I think the action set pieces are very well staged, and I really do think Terence Knox did a great performance here of this kind of very kind of rattled Zeke Anderson that you don't normally see. So, you know, the tension feels there. You feel that there's real stakes in this episode. And I like the guest star as well, as his pilot, who is his captain. I forget the actor's name, sorry, but thought he did a great job as well. But overall, this is a solid episode. I'll give it an 8 out of 10. Have you seen it? What do you think of it? Leave me comments, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.